So, welcome everyone to Unexpectedly Open to Work here at Women Who Code Connect Empower. Um, we're going to hopefully have a really great panel discussion. I'm super excited to hear the stories and maybe get an opportunity later on to answer some audience questions. Let's start by introducing our panelists. So, first we have Kelly Anlas, who's a software developer and technical director, or technical leader and a director of Women Who Code New York. Rafna, software developer and technical leader, co-founded Aktibeto, which helps women transition into tech. And then Ann Kilzer, software architect and director of Tokyo Women Who Code. And finally, Bisi Josh-Falade, tech professional with vast experience in development lifecycle. So I'm actually so this is my intro to you. I'm kind of warming you up. And what we're going to do is kind of go through, and I'd love to hear, first of all, hopefully I said all your names correctly. I'd love to hear, why you're here as part of your intro. So let's start with Kelly.
Sure. Hi, everyone. As Tara said, I'm Kelly. I'm currently an engineering manager at Paxos. I'm here speaking on the Unexpectedly Open to Work panel because I, fortunately or unfortunately, have had two experiences with this. I've been a software engineer my whole career, and my first job out of college I was at for about a year and a half before a layoff. I spent 5 months job hunting before I landed at my next role. So I have that experience from kind of earliest in my career, going from having a job to being unemployed and figuring out what to do next. And then a little bit more recently, last year I was at Twitter. You may have heard a little bit about that. So I was also part of a layoff at Twitter. And once again, now moved on to my next role. So I'm really looking forward to speaking to you all and with the rest of the panelists about what those experiences for us were like.
Welcome, Kelly. Rafna, how about you tell us why you're here?
Hi, thank you, Tara. Yeah, I'm Rafna, founder and CEO of Aktibeto. It's an online community for women returning to work after career break and women transitioning into the industry. So I do the work. So why I'm here is I have been unexpectedly moved to another place, and so had that challenge of getting into the work. And there's like a lot of unexpected questions that I thought that I would never have to go through it. And so did that challenge. So I started my own career as a freelancer, and then I had quite a journey on that. So I thought I'd share my experience here, and that's the one of the reason that I started Aktibeto, to help and support women who is in the same similar journey as me, and so providing all the resources and guidance they need, and also a community to support them to get back into their job. So I'm excited to be here and talk about it more.
Awesome. Welcome, Rafna. And Bisi, I just realized, my bad, I neglected to note that you were the lead for the Women Who Code Data Science track and on the Call for Papers review committee. So if you ever wanted to give a talk, you got to go warm yourself up to Bisi. Bisi, why are you here today?
All right, thank you so much, Tara. My name is Bisi, and I'm a software delivery professional. I've had my background in software development lifecycle, working all the way from business solutions analysis up to quality assurance and down to product management. And so I've had a vast majority of my experience has been in that space till about 2 years ago, when I had to leave work unexpectedly because I had my little girl who had some health issues and needed more attention. And I actually weighed the options and felt, oh, I think it's better to actually give her the attention she needs. And in that space, from that time till now, I've had so much going on. And one of them is I've done a pivot from my professional background into data and machine learning. So a lot of things happened, which I'm happy to share with everyone on our panel on our panel today. So I'm looking forward to sharing it all with everyone here. Thank you.
All right, and finally, calling all the way in, I think, from Tokyo, Japan, Ann Kilsner. Ann, why are you here?
Yeah, it just Kilzer, please. Yeah, I'm have had a couple times in my career where I was, I guess, let go or just had to leave a job. I guess the first was when I was a PhD student. My grad school advisor suddenly decided not to renew me. And that was a bit of a scramble to stay a full-time student and get a master's degree. Just right there, I got it. And a few years later, I was at a startup and half the engineering team got laid off awkwardly. And, that was kind of dramatic. And then also in 2020, I was working at another startup. And while I thought things were going well, 2020 brought some economic challenges. Our pay cut was, our pay was drastically slashed, and they asked me to work on marketing, and it was extremely stressful. They did pay me back later, but I ended up resigning in all the chaos. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I've had a couple times in my career where I've just had to be like, have to reinvent and build back. So I wanted to share those experiences to hope that it could help someone else going through a challenging transition.
Fantastic. Welcome, panelists. All right, so let's get into some deep dives on some interesting topics. One of the challenges, and I saw it a lot certainly across LinkedIn and other social media, about keeping up your technical skills. The Great Resignation. What are you doing? Last 6 to 9 months of increasing numbers of layoffs. So, how did all of you, and let's start with Bisi, balance job searching? In your case, Bisi, you have children, or at least a child. It's caretaking, and then also upskilling, but not burning out with all of that. How did you sort of balance all of those different, and how did you pressure yourself as part of that process, and maybe hopefully figure out how to ease the pressure on yourself?
Okay, for me, I was actually a time of pressure at the very beginning, because I felt disenfranchised, because I was out of work, and I had to also take care of a little baby. However, what I was able to do, and what I've been able to do, is to pick an area of focus. That was my first step. I decided to focus on an area in tech. Like I said, I had my background in product and in business analysis and quality assurance, and I had to take some time out to identify, do I still want to go ahead with that, or do I want to pivot? Do I want to search still in line with that career path? And that was the first decision I made, and that decision was to actually do a pivot for me, because I wanted a change of I wanted to know what data was all about, what's going on in this data space, big data and everything. And so that was the first thing I did. And once I did that, I then decided I went online, decided to look out for resources that could help me, still learn in this, because it's pretty new to me, so I had to look out for resources, things I need to do, things I need to learn. And the truth is, the internet is filled with so much resources. I got lost at some point. But again, one of the things I did was to look out for communities, people I could reach out to one-on-one, to talk to. Okay, this is what I'm doing. How can you help me out? What do you think I should do? I signed up for a number of mentoring programs, which, in line with the focus area I'd selected, and they were able to mentor me what I needed to do, and fortunately, or that was how I got into women who code, into the data science track actually, and I was able to learn. And another thing I was able to do was just to give my time, gave myself a time frame. I gave myself a time frame, what when to learn what, at what point should I be delivering on this, because at that point, I was ready to pivot, and so there was a bit of pressure on me, as well as the pressure to take care of my baby. So I was able to balance out by doing a bit of this, and also by preparing a schedule, my daily schedule. I had daily schedule of what to do, how to do, when to do what, and a daily planner, I must put it that way. So those are some of the things I did that helped me not burn out.
Like a lot, and the idea of community is a really important one. As you know, as we know at Women Who Code, that's the whole point of is technical communities. I think another one that, Anne, in your story, you talked about, the startup wasn't technical, all of a sudden doing marketing work. Did you ever, or not marketing work per se, but having to be asked to do things maybe outside of your comfort zone? Were there, in the other example, where you all of a sudden had to scramble for your academic career? It sounds like you've had to do a lot of transitions. In your story, how did you balance that idea of, maybe evaluating upskilling or other types of sort of, what type of job that you wanted to go to next?
Yeah, so that situation in particular was basically I wasn't earning enough money to cover my rent. My monthly income had been cut below where my rent was, and I wasn't allowed to keep coding, and I didn't foresee a future where I could keep pretending to do marketing, which I wasn't interested in doing. I was sort of doing it to be nice and people pleasing, and I was looking, I think I should just quit and just take, then the thing you get when you quit is you get time that you can focus on interviewing. But that also started a clock of 3 months. I was on a visa that if I didn't have an employer, I might have had to leave the country within 3 months, which is a pretty intimidating deadline. Now, any immigrant in the United States on an H-1B is going to have a much rougher timeline too. So, it's just really hard to be in that position. But I think you have to sometimes weigh the consequences of what's my self-worth, what's this, is this situation in making, I don't know, we have power to reinvent ourselves, and sometimes we have to take calculated risks. But I just found I was able to get to a better spot by doing that, but it was a very scary time. So I'm not sure, did that answer your question? It was a bit, yeah.
No, it works. And it actually, I think, touches on, to be unexpectedly open to work doesn't necessarily mean you were laid off, right? It means
not
that maybe
necessarily, but it was kind of untenable for me to stay in that job, because it was just, I realized that as much as I tried to do well at that job and also study for something new under the stress of being in lockdown, it just, none of it was working. I had to change something. So
and upskilling your marketing skills was not on the list.
it was kind of a desperate effort. And I thought, this is not my dream. So I'm fighting for someone else's dream.
Really, in your realm, I mean, you turn around and you see Twitter in the news in some weird way, with all the various, what was it, the Twitter 2.0, hardcore, whatever, and when you were making these transitions, did you feel that you felt like you needed to upskill quickly, or that you had more confidence that your base skills would allow you, and it sounds like it did, allow you to find a new role relatively quickly? So what was that process like for you?
I think the key difference is this time around was significantly easier because I was applying for a job that I'd already done. And in my experience, like, what we're ultimately talking about isn't really your ability to do the job you're interviewing for, it's your ability to pass the interview. And having sat on, dozens, if not maybe 100 at this point, of like engineering manager interviews, like, I know what engineering manager interviews look like. I've got a lot of experience. I have a lot of stories to talk about. So I felt very comfortable in this position. I'm also a little bit later in life and better settled. So the stress of being unemployed is lower. So that was very specific to this situation. It was the opposite the first time. So the first time I went out and I'd had, again, a job for like a year and a half. I was working in like, it was at the time called Microsoft Dynamics AX. It was like a very niche coding thing. I wasn't really flexing my like programming skills. And what I figured out very quickly upon the layoff was that my coding skills weren't sharp enough to pass interviews, right? And that's, I think, kind of my guidance on this is upskilling is great, but I think a lot of times what interviewers are looking at is like, what work have you actually done? And it can be tough to sell some of the things that are in the interim, unless you're kind of very specifically maybe building a project that you're going to use to demonstrate a skill set. I think it can help to kind of focus in on like, what is the thing that I'm trying to achieve right now? And if it's for, you're a software engineer and you're trying to pass some level of a coding screen, like that's where you need to skill, and that's where you need to get the practice in, get your reps in by doing, it's like trite advice, but it is true at the same time. Like you do like your lead code and you do lots of interviews and you kind of get a sense of how strong of a technical interviewee you are at this point in time. And that also gives you a sense of, again, what kind of interviews you're going to pass. So I think that's kind of it's tough because it seems like a great opportunity to both like upskill into like other things, but in my experience, it's also very hard to then sell the interviewer on like, oh yeah, well, I spent, a couple hours a week learning this new skill. This is going to actually help me in the workplace. That's a tougher thing, I think, to get past. Terry.
Unmute. Yes. So it's really about, in your view, and I don't know that I disagree, reinforcing what you have to up-level that rather than it's something brand new. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Rafna, so in your circumstance, moving into a location where there wasn't a wide variety of opportunity, and you're thinking, I'm going to switch gears now. I'm going to be a founder. I'm going to take on a whole new role. What was that process like for you as far as transitioning from what you had done before?
Yeah, so I was working in India as an engineering manager. I mean, I started my career as a software engineer, so I was going smoothly. Not smoothly, but still, I have a job. I had that ladder that I'm climbing. I'm growing in my career. Then I got married and had to move to US. And my expectation when I moved here was high in terms of like, it's a much more tech opportunity. There's a lot of tech companies here. So it's easy for me to get a job, right? I mean, I've been working. And so when I reached here and I took a small break for that transition time, adjust to the climate, adjust to the language, everything, right? So after a few months, I started applying for a job, and then I got questions like, you don't have any experience here in US, so we can't have references here. A lot of like questions that didn't make sense to me, considering my background, and so one of the things that I worked as an engineering manager, leading multiple global teams, not just a small team in my country or anything. And so it's like it didn't make sense. A lot of questions that recruiters ask. I mean, I didn't even get past the recruiters to prove myself to the company, potential employers, that I'm worth, I have all the skill set that you're looking for. I didn't get a chance in the beginning. That's how I started freelancing, so that I can show that I have experience here in the US. So in my journey, I kind of like proving having an experience. Initially, they said that I don't have an experience in US, so that I have to prove myself that I have experience in US. And then so while I was working as a freelancer, I also worked with clients like nonprofit organizations. So when we say nonprofit organization, then suddenly the question came in, like another question came in, like, how much you got paid? Because it's a nonprofit, right? So you're not getting paid. If you're not getting paid, that means like, nobody is giving value to your work. So that kind of thing. So that's all like kind of like put a stress on my like, how this job search is going and how this is happening. It's not what I thought, it's not what I expected. So those are my challenges when trying to fit in and be coming from an outside, coming from another country and trying to fit in and talking about it. And there's no other than Women Who Code. So that's how I joined Women Who Code, because I started networking, so that would help me to get the job. So most of my networking tech events especially, it's all male people, like, and also like if there is any women, she might have came with somebody, so she's always talking to that group or sticking with that group. So I felt like lonely, and the Women Who Code is the only group that I found that there are women in the tech industry, boosted my confidence that I'm not the only tech person here or women tech person here. So kind of like that was my start and my transition. So I started this freelancing, getting connected to all, getting more involved in the Women Who Code community, started study groups so that I get get to meet more women. That was the main purpose of starting a study group in Boulder, Denver chapter. And then so I went through that, and I liked the flexibility of having freelance work. And I that trauma of answering or trying to fit in into the job search was was unexpected for me, and I just wanted to continue with the freelance job. And then I started this community work, and I really enjoyed it. So that's how I wanted to see that how can I grow within the area that I am in. And one thing that I learned from freelancing is like I get to work in all sorts of problem solving. So it's not just industry agnostic. I mean, like industry specific. I can work with anyone, and I can solve any problems, and also I can learn new skills. So I started my career in Java, and it's related to Spring and all those. And when I started freelancing, I started to learn JavaScript and Python. And I get to work with different technologies. And there's like experimental phase too, like how to learn new skills, but also use my existing skills into a project. And so that was learning something new and keeping my skills in existing skills intact.
You kind of did it backwards, right? You weren't upskilling as part of your looking for work. You decided to turn your work into upskilling.
Yeah, so it's like so I can showcase those skill set too. So when I in my journey, I here and there started applying to see like what am I lacking now. So every time I apply for a job search, apply for jobs, they ask me, they pointed me what I'm lacking. So I kind of like, okay, now what I'm lacking. I have experience, I have projects, I have skill set. Now what I'm experiencing. So that's how I took the job search, like, trying to think positively, not get affected by what the feedback I'm getting. So initially it was traumatizing, but I tried to twist it around and made it beneficial to me, and keep learning and keep applying. So they'll tell us like what's wrong with my skill set, and then learn something, fit into it. So.
Thank you. That was quite the journey. So as part of this process, what unexpected or surprising benefits came out of your unexpectedness? Let's start with Anne. There was something unexpected
I think the thing is, looking at the arc of my career now, and I've been in coding for 20 years and actually in the industry for, I guess, 10 now. And it's just like you can build stronger, and you can heal from these things. They might feel totally crushing in that moment, and do take time to grieve in the moment. If you're feeling you've just lost your job, don't feel like you need to open lead code tomorrow. It's okay to rest a little bit, but like, what happens years, months later, after I got a 50% job increase. I became a permanent resident of Japan within a few years. I have this like great new apartment, and I'm building this life in Japan where I have art hobbies, and I work at a really cool company as a software architect. So, your career is long, and that moment is a lot of pain, and that's okay. But, you can heal from it, and you can reinvent yourself. So don't, just notice it's just it's small in the big picture. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Awesome. Bisi, what would you say? Some unexpected or surprising benefits in your journey?
Okay, in my journey, in addition to what Anne said, I figured out there were some interests that I had, and for some reason, while at work, you would usually have this workload, and probably you have little or no time to explore those interests. And so, one of the things I learned, during the period, during this transition is, I was able to identify those interests. I was able to identify things I liked to do, but for some reason, I just never had the time. I just never had, the ability, or I never had the free time to actually explore them. That's one of the things I was able to learn during this time. It's usually painful at first, and I must be sincere, I was a bit depressed at first, because I felt, wow, what's happening? My career is going. What's going on? But along the line, I had to get up again, and then take hold of my career and my life back. And then I was able to identify some areas that I had some interest in, but just never got the time to go around it. So those are things I learned during this period, during this transition.
Kelly, what about you?
I'll just plus one to what Anne and Bisi said. I definitely cried the first time I got laid off. I didn't cry the second time for maybe some reason. Yeah, it's self-evident. And that's totally normal, and it's totally fair. I would say for me, at least the first time, and fingers crossed that it'll be true the second time as well, the layoff led to the best career move I've made. So I went from a job that I didn't feel excited about to getting back into writing the kind of code I wanted to be writing. I was at that company, Clearpool, for like 5 years, which really set me up for success for up until now. I left them a couple of years ago. So it forces you to be creative and gives you also the space to do that. I feel like when I've done job hunting, when I've been employed, I'm less creative about it. And I think in hindsight, looking back, those are the career moves that I wouldn't classify really anything as a mistake, but just sort of like, okay, like those were kind of maybe a little bit more of a narrow vision of like what I was looking for in my next role. And then these opportunities where I've actually had the time to sit back and really explore and also be open about it. Like I posted on LinkedIn and I was like, hey, I got laid off. Like I haven't noticed anything, like I'm, opening my net. And that when you're employed, you can't really do that for obvious reasons. So you kind of are both enabled and welcomed into that like more creative form of seeing like what is next for me, like what's really important and how can I make the most of the time. I think I was maybe more so in hindsight than at the time. Like that's what I see is what those breaks gave me.
I totally resonate with that. One of the times I got laid off through a long, torturous sequence of events, I ended up working at Pixar Studios for 11 years. So it's like, wow, that was fortuitous. And Rafna, I heard in your story a whole bunch of unexpected, surprising benefits. So I'm going to have you lead with a new question. What is something that you know now that you wish someone would have told you at the start of your transition, your unexpected break?
I would say take a deep breath. I mean, so as soon as I got here, I was in a rush to get a job, right? I mean, so other than like adjusting to I was always thinking about how to get into the next job, how to get into the career. So it's hard when going through that, trying to analyze what I'm worth of, and like what value I can showcase to the employer that I'm looking for. And also something like, it's okay not to have a job for a few months, or few as long as you want. It's okay, take a deep breath and analyze yourself. And also, another thing that came to my mind that I always thought about is like, it's not necessary that I mean, as I said, like I stopped my career at as an engineering manager. So what I was looking was how to start as a engineering manager here. So it's not necessary that to start at the point where you stop. You just have to find yourself where you can grow, where you can develop, what are the skills that you have to analyze. Take that time off to analyze myself, and like, what are my skill set, what I'm good at, what I'm bad at, do I need to upskill, all those things. Take some time to do to do that analysis, and go for a career that's fit into that skill set. Not necessary that you have to start as an engineering manager because you stopped at that point. And also, like, not avoid that rush. I did that in the beginning, and I felt like I wasn't concentrating on that, narrowing down what I need at that time. So yeah, so as I am into more mature and experienced, I kind of like, I would have done, if I would have done that initially, I would not have feel that trauma of not having a job and getting awkward questions and things like that.
Bisi, Kelly, or Anne, do any of you have any sort of unexpected, or I'm sorry, something that you wish you'd known then that you know now?
Okay, I think I would go. I wish I'd known Women Who Code earlier, right from when I stopped working. I think I would have done a whole lot more. Unfortunately, for about a year, I was depressed and I didn't want to do anything with it anymore. I didn't want to do anything with tech anymore for some time, for some reason. But then yeah, I think that's one of the things I wished I knew earlier, Women Who Code, and some other communities that can help with it.
Community definitely is a strong theme I'm hearing, and it's certainly for me as well. It's been such a critical aspect of growth over time. Anne or Kelly, you have any thoughts?
I maybe added earlier, but I mean, again, don't feel like you need to you go from a job to like studying for interviews 8 hours a day. Like, pace yourself. I mean, it depends. If you do have a severance, some companies give severance, like in the United States. And so maybe you can take that and use that money and that time to just buy yourself a little rest. If you're on a tighter deadline for financial or visa reasons, you'll have to hustle and do what you can. But even still, I took rest. I sometimes I went to Chiba one day just to go see the ocean, and I played Animal Crossing in the morning and then I would study a few hours. But like, balance your day and don't try to cram necessarily. Like, just set up a reasonable schedule for you to learn and get interviews in the pipeline, but you're not going to solve it all in a day. It's going to take time to do, and give yourself that time to grieve and process, because especially if you've been laid off, or there's different circumstances, but often you're grieving a rejection and a loss of a community and, fear about your income. So it's definitely, there's a lot of feelings, and it's okay to have those.
All of us right now are wondering, how can we get in on a lifestyle of Animal Crossing and beach? That sounds pretty amazing.
It was a little escapism, but like summer 2020, what else was anyone doing? But escaping to video games, and yeah.
Awesome. All right, I think it's time for us to cut over to maybe one or two audience questions. Here we go. How did you find mentoring resources?
Can I jump on this one first? I
Yeah,
think
please.
first thing I would say is, like, if you're looking for a mentor outside of your own company, which in this situation you would be, from the perspective of being asked this question a lot, have something specific that you are looking to gain from this mentorship relationship. So rather than just like, oh, I'm looking for someone to mentor me, which kind of sounds as if you're asking for someone else to do sort of the heavy lifting of like helping you with just like your career ad nauseum. If you can come up with some questions that are like, here is something I would like to talk to someone about, and have it be a little bit more specific up front, I think that will open more doors to more conversations with people, because it will feel like a lower lift for them, which may lead to longer term mentorship opportunities.
Absolutely. Anyone else got good mentoring thoughts?
ADP List. It's a website that has free mentorship, and there's people all around the world. I've done a little bit of mentoring on it, but I think you can find mentors or be a mentor. I'm sure if you asked in the Women Who Code channels too, you might be able to find someone. But yeah.
Also, as a reminder, a lot of conferences, if you're not working, they have sponsorship opportunities. The community-oriented conferences like Women Who Code Connect, or Lesbians Who Tech, or you can imagine any number of them. And often we'll also often have speed mentoring as part of the programming. So there's definitely kind of keep your eye out. Bisi or Rafna, have you had much experience with identifying mentors successfully?
Yeah. So there are a couple of mentoring programs online. But again, I think, like Kelly said, the first thing is to identify your focus, identify the area you think you need mentoring on, and then go out, look out for mentors or people who on LinkedIn who are very good in that particular area, in that particular tech area, and you can actually reach out. You can reach out to them. I've also been part of some mentoring programs. There are a couple of them also. We have different tracks in Women Who Code. We offer different mentoring programs. Different tracks offer different mentoring programs. So it's always available, and yeah, I think it's quite easy to get, but at least that focus must be identified first before you jump into it.
All right. Thank you, Sabrina. That was a great question. Suzanne asks, oh, Rafna, how do you find freelance work? I suspect you're inspiring many women right now.
Yeah. So you can find many, there's lots of ways to find freelance work. But you have to set yourself, like, what do you want to do? First of all, you have to have that, identify what time frame you are working, what kind of freelance work you want to do. And then there's lots of online resources like Upwork, remote.com, then there's swarm.com, then there's freelance.com or freelance.io, something like that. So there are so many online websites that's out there for freelance remote work. Another thing, or main thing that I did is networking. So how that works is like you go to the events, and it works for people who are introverts too. You don't have to like talk a lot but when you go into talk to other people, say that I am open to work, I do this. So that's one of the things that I do. I do technical project, I create websites, I create. So talk about it if you need someone, or if you need if you're looking for someone to do this work, I would do that. So give them that contact info, email address or phone number. I mean, mostly email address, but or LinkedIn also work. So LinkedIn has that QR code. If anyone doesn't know, there's a QR code that we can get from the LinkedIn to connect it. So what I do is I put it as my screenshot, like the lock screen.
Your lock screen?
Yeah, lock screen. I put it on there so that it's easy to show them everywhere, so they get connected to my LinkedIn. So that's one way. So give out your contact info, mainly email or LinkedIn, so that and talk about it like I have this much experience. So that's some of the ways. So people remember when you talk about when you say that you will do this for them if they are looking for. So that's openness is one of the things that you can find easily. Freelance work, people will remember. And if somebody says that, oh, I have a friend who's looking for tech, doing some tech work or something like that, creating a website or something like that. So you take the contact from that person. So that's one of the other trick. Email address, like, oh, can I email you tomorrow? And follow up, like, next day itself, like send an email saying that, hey, you mentioned your friend need a website. How can I help, or something like that. So follow up is important. So communication in one way or the other. You don't have to give a big speech about it. So that's something that you can get freelance work from your network or from your local community. And the other websites that I told, that's another way to find remote jobs. Then reach out to small businesses or something that, hey, your website needs some refreshing. I can do this. So reach out like that also would work. It depends on how much courage you have. So it's
a lot of people who did freelance in 2020 to help companies get online in the first place, right?
Yeah.
It's like a brick and mortar, now you're online. Let's close it out. So we're at the Women Who Code Connect conference. This is awesome. And how can communities like Women Who Code support an unexpected career break? And I think Kelly has a particularly good answer here. So close this out, Kelly.
Now you really set me up. So I feel like I'm about to maybe I have to reword this in my head a little bit to make it a really great answer. I would say, for one, it's just one of the best opportunities to kind of solve like all of the things we talked about. I mean, for one, you get other people who are definitely in the same situation. I mean, everyone's getting laid off right now. So it's like, if that's you too, like, no embarrassment, no shame, is most people. So it's great for that. Honestly, it's also an answer to like the mentorship question. I was thinking about like where I see my mentorship relationships, and like the leads of my channel are the ones who get the most mentorship from me, because we end up working together on things. We work through like problems of like, oh, like, how are we dealing with this vendor? How are we dealing with this like third party? Like, how do we deal with each other? How do we put things together? So it's like a great opportunity for that. And I will give one pitch that we have the networks booth open today. So if you're interested in getting involved with Women Who Code, there's a couple of sessions, but I'm going to pitch mine, which is at 3:30 Eastern time. Me and two of my leads, Desiree and Jesse, will be joining me. And we can come and ask some of these same questions about like the mentorship and like finding the connection. That's a lot of what you get by being a part of a community like this, is opportunity to meet people, to get somebody who knows of an opening at a job, just support, and also, upskilling, kind of everything we addressed above.
And I'll just throw in one last comment, because I actually gave a talk that included this data that I went and looked up. In the United States, at least, the unemployment industry in the tech industry is somewhere around 1.3%. So, and in this day of remote work, I suspect even if you are unexpectedly open to work, just be persistent. Your job is definitely out there somewhere. So take heart. I've learned so much from all of these amazing women. It was so great. Thank you, panelists. And kicking it back to you, Anna.